For those that are listening and are less familiar with DORA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act, it is, as the gentlemen have shared, it's a regulatory framework in the EU, and it's going to combine a number of existing regulations with some new ones. So my question to you both is, how do you think this will impact businesses both inside the EU, but then also globally outside the EU? Because similar to the GDPR, it is something that multinational organizations should be mindful of, should be ready for. How do you see this impacting not just organizations that operate in the EU, but globally?
Basically, the tricky part of DORA is the original scope is the financial institutions, but their third-party vendors and suppliers who are contributing into the critical financial services, they also have to be compliant. So at the end of the day, the whole supply chain of the financial institution shall be covered. And I think it would be very difficult to find a company who is not part of this game. So the scope is bigger than it seems at the first look.
Yeah.
Just anything to add to that? Yeah.
Yeah, I would just refer to the NIS2 requirement that is very similar to DORA with a different organizational scope, because instead of financial institutions only, in its scope, it covers all critical infrastructure companies. And similarly to DORA, it also has a cascading effect on the supply chain of these companies, as supply chain security is also included in this requirement. And the companies that fall into the scope of this regulatory requirement would need to make sure that their suppliers are also compliant with the requirements. So if the supplier is outside the EU, the supplier still would need to comply with the requirements regardless of the territorial scope of this regulation in the EU.